I'm now going to ask the Secretary to read the fourth order of the day. The fourth order of the day, the vote 5 of education.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Debate on vote 5, Education Western Cape Adjustment Appropriation Bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now recognize. Okay. Thank you very much, member. I recognize
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, you may be aware that before 12 this morning, I tabled a motion, and I would just like to ask whether you, as the House Chair, could inform the House about how you intend to deal with the motion, particularly in terms of the rule which says that if the motion is unanimously supported, then it can be dealt with on the same day.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, the Deputy Speaker will be joining us to deal with that. I think she's still busy with that. Immediately when she comes to take a seat, she will deal with it, if it's okay with you, that way. Thank you very much. I now recognize Minister David Maynard.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Our budget is indeed a framework for hope. Hope for parents, hope for our teachers, and most crucially, hope for our children. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce the 2022-23 adjustments budget for the Western Cape Education Department, which increases our main budget by 17.85 million from 28.03 billion to 28.05 billion. Chairperson, when I was appointed in this role, I decided to take a slightly different approach to establishing my priorities. I embarked on a listening and learning program to hear about existing and new ideas that will help us deliver quality education for our learners and hope for our province. One fact that became immediately clear is that the principals, teachers, practitioners, and officials that make up our education sector are the greatest asset we have. We entrust our children to their care, to nurture and to guide throughout their schooling career. And as I said during my speech at the Provincial Teaching Awards, where I was joined by some members of this House, the one thing that the pandemic taught us is that schools matter and teachers matter. It came as no surprise to us that our provincial winners went on to shine at the national awards, with no less than 4 of our teachers winning their categories and a further 2 placing second. I would like to thank all our teachers across the province for their innovation, for their dedication, for their integrity, for their commitment, for their courage, for their caring, and most importantly, for their love of our children here in the Western Cape. With such care and dedication in our classrooms, there is surely no limit to what we can achieve. It is clear that we have great public schools in our province, delivering excellent results across our province. We should be proud of their achievement and of the work that our schools are doing. But we must not forget the challenges. A few school visits really stood out for me during my listening and learning program. At Gordon High School, I experienced the reality of overcrowding classrooms. Every available space in the school had been converted into a classroom, be it a storeroom or a staff room. At Kalkfontein Primary School, I learned that out of a full class of grade R learners, only a handful had lunchboxes, bringing home the striking reality of our learners' home circumstances. At Bardale Primary School, which is one of our oldest mobile schools in the province, it was clear that we have a great need for upgrading schools across the board, even as we build new schools. And at Mannenberg High School, a teacher relayed her traumatic experience of having a bullet fly through the window of the staff room, showing just how difficult it can be to educate our children in areas plagued by violent crime. One thing, of course, that these schools had in common was excellent leadership and profoundly committed and hardworking teachers. Every one of them was positive and proactive, with a common sense and common purpose to uplift our children. And I'm truly inspired by their work. These schools all have great potential. We just need to help them get there. But we cannot say, Chairperson, we cannot say that every child is receiving a quality education if there are too many learners in a class, if there are too few teachers in a school, and if there are too few schools in our province. I want us to have more beautiful, safe, inspiring schools that deliver great results in poor communities so that we deliver better opportunities and brighter futures, and indeed hope for all our children here in the Western Cape, which is why we are setting a bold new education agenda to do just that. We are employing up to 1,143 additional teachers to staff new classrooms and bring down class sizes. We are offering permanent posts to up to 500 qualified grade R teachers already employed in our schools in subsidized posts to retain their skills in the system and expand our provision of grade R. We are aiming to deliver up to 26,000 new places in our schools next year through our unprecedented school infrastructure delivery program. And of course, we are taking decisive steps to reverse the learning losses that have knock-on effects throughout our learners' schooling careers. Chairperson, we have just announced the biggest, fastest, and most ambitious school infrastructure delivery program in years, which aims to deliver 842 new classrooms for the 2023 school year. We are in a position to do so as a result of our budget increase, along with having greater flexibility in implementing our infrastructure program. The number of learners in our province schools has grown by an average of about 17,900 learners every year for the past 5 years. Accommodating these new entrants alone would require the construction of 20 new schools each year. But there are a number of other factors affecting school infrastructure, such as the backlog in provision from past years, which has led to crowded classrooms. We also have a very old portfolio of infrastructure, having inherited many buildings from the apartheid era that need maintenance and replacement. These needs must, of course, be weighed against the need for new infrastructure, despite the current projections that the average increase in learner numbers will continue. Our province continues to draw new entrants to our school system as parents seek out better economic opportunities and higher quality education. And we must, of course, make provision for this pattern to continue. The 842 classrooms planned would provide 26,000 extra places in our schools and are spread over a number of different types of projects. 3 brick and mortar new and replacement schools, 5 new mobile schools, 645 additional classrooms at existing schools, and 7 rapid school build program projects. As we outlined to the Standing Committee on Education, we have already completed 164 classrooms planned for next year, and a further 510 are scheduled for completion by January 2023. And the final 168 are due to be completed by March 2023. The Rapid School Build program is an exciting new infrastructure program that seeks to bring together various stakeholders with the aim of developing and building 7 schools within 6 months to accommodate 3,200 learners. The management speed and cooperation of the Rapid School Build program differentiates it from typical projects. We are using new building technology, like the Maladi technology, which uses frames to mold permanent concrete walls. Our contractors have been very receptive to the program, and we will be working through the traditional builders' holidays to help us deliver more places for our learners. All of these new classrooms will, of course, need teachers to teach them. And so earlier this year, as I've said, we announced one of the largest increases in the basket of posts in quite some time, allowing us to appoint up to 1,143 extra teachers for the 2023 school year. Now, some members have already started criticizing us for the scale of the school build, saying that the program is over-ambitious. I'm reminded of a great quote by Franklin D. Roosevelt, when he said, "The country demands bold, persistent experimentation. It is common sense to take a method and try it. If it fails, admit it frankly and try another. But above all, try something." If there was ever a time to be ambitious, to lean in, a time to be bold, and a time to try something, that time is now. And so, yes, we are being ambitious, providing 26,000 new places for the 2023 school year. Yes, we have already had some challenges at some of our sites, which is extremely disappointing. And any disruption or delay will deprive learners of places next year. We have briefed the Standing Committee on Education openly on the considerable risks. And yes, it is possible that some of the 842 classrooms may well be delayed. But that is not a reason not to try. When I saw the speed at which the Maladi classrooms were going up at the Hindle High School last week, and how beautiful the completed ones were at Westridge Secondary School, I was filled with a sense of optimism and indeed of purpose. So while we are indeed aware that this is not an easy task and that there are many risks, I hope that we can all work together to prioritize the delivery of school infrastructure for our children. Chairperson, at the same time, we must not lose sight of the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic had on learners already in our schools. Earlier this year, we announced that the results of the 2021 systemic tests revealed severe learning losses associated with the pandemic. While we had previously made great progress with a steady increase in performance in years preceding 2020, these gains were unfortunately reversed by the pandemic. The greatest learning losses, of course, were seen in the foundation phase, These learning losses will have serious knock-on effects as those learners progress through their school careers. It was for this reason that we implemented a back-on-track intervention to reverse learning losses in the foundation phase. We took a decisive step of adding an extra 2 hours per week allocated to reading and 1 hour extra per week for mathematics for all grade 1 to 3 learners in this province, amounting to an increase of at least 60 additional learning hours per learner in these subjects. And I'm pleased to report that in a recent survey of our schools, 94% of teachers indicated that they would like the additional time allocation to continue in 2023. The majority of teachers indicated that the additional time allocation was beneficial for the learners, and 96% of teachers indicated that they could integrate life skills into languages with ease. Moreover, the early grade reading assessment results, which are measured twice a year, also show improvement across all 8 education districts. We have taken this information to the National Department and have already had a number of very positive conversations about implementing the additional time allocations across the country so that the unequal impact of learning losses can be addressed for learners in all provinces, not just here in the Western Cape. Chairperson, in the end, what we want to see is schools that deliver hope for our children. The fact is that the vast majority of us in our country want to live together in harmony and want to improve the quality of life for all who live in our country. What we do not need in our country is division. What we do need is unity and compassion towards one another. Yes, we will face challenges, and there are no doubt more difficult times ahead, but we will overcome those challenges if we keep in mind the central goal, the unity, equality, and well-being of our children. And we'll overcome those challenges if we all work together to achieve the vision of quality education for every child in every classroom, in every school in the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognize Honourable Member Sayed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. We also thank Honourable van der Westhuizen for the lamb shank inside. Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, as articulated in our standing committee last week, on behalf of the African National Congress, I rise to reject this budget. Honourable MEC David Mania speaks of a budget to bring hope, but unfortunately, this budget represents the antithesis of that. Notwithstanding the fact, and we thank the MEC, that it does speak about the socio-economic conditions that our people are facing. We thank the MEC for that, but the budget does not speak to that particular reality. While it is claimed that the Western Cape Education Department's budget increased over 17 million rand, the reality is that it was not for the role. The reality is that if it was not for the rollovers of over 24 million, the budget could have decreased by 6.9 million. The budgets for early childhood development and infrastructure development are decreased by 104 million rand and 130 million rand respectively. Such a move shows the DA's nonchalant attitude towards access to quality education for all. This budget is considered at a time when MEC Mania promised to build 800 additional classrooms and 7 new schools for 26,000 learners, as he articulated, in response to the DA's self-orchestrated crisis of unplaced learners year after year, and that we'll also see in January 2023, and in response to us exposing these numbers and to us demanding that action be taken. So oversight has worked to an extent. The budget cuts in the infrastructure development program show that the MEC's ambitious plan is merely DA spin. When MEC Mania and his department appeared before our Education Standing Committee last month, the public were told that as at the 3rd of November 2022, over 25,000 learners were still in need of placement at schools across our province. The budget cuts prove that the target to build 26,000 additional classroom seats will not be achieved. And we know all too well the crisis that we will be faced with come January 2023. We continue not to accept, however, any excuses for unplaced learners. A plan must take place. The ANC will fight that no child must be left behind in January 2023. That remains our motto. It is extremely concerning that the WCED spending on its infrastructure development budget is slow compared to last year. There is a high probability that MEC Mania's department will underspend on this budget. Under the Democratic Alliance, since 2009 when they took office in this province, this department has built a reputation for underspending on infrastructure development in particular. This department's performance on infrastructure development can best be described as shambolic. This includes its dismal performance on maintenance and renovations at ailing schools in poor communities, both in the metro and in rural areas. One example is the long delay to renovate Portland Primary School in Mitchell's Plain. The ANC first made calls for the renovations at the school during the medium-term budget debate on 10th of December 2021. Working closely with parents, community members, and local ANC structures in the area, we continue to apply pressure on the department. The school is now a construction site until 2023. That's a positive gain from active oversight. We commend unsung heroes like the dedicated activist Mr. Munir Hendricks, who is present in the gallery today. Sadly, he was purged and suffered victimization for reporting infrastructure challenges at the school while he was on the SGB and making demands for WCED to address the dangerous structural defects that impacted on his own children and on other children. Honourable Chairperson, the ANC welcomes the over 10 million budget allocation for public special school education. However, we are concerned by the shift of 12.9 million for buildings and other fixed structures in special needs schools that will now be used in public ordinary schools. This is unacceptable, as there are serious infrastructure needs across many special needs schools. We will continue to work with NGOs, some of whose representatives, like Terry Stevens from Autism SA, are present as our guests today, to stand up for our learners with special needs. Equally concerning is the fact that funds for grade R in ECD centers and public schools are being utilized for programs such as information communication technology. In January 2023, we will sadly again, Chair, see learners from poor families being turned away from schools if they do not have money to contribute towards the compulsory donations set by certain schools in poor communities for grade R classes. We witnessed this practice firsthand in Umfuleni and Elsies River this year, January. The ANC Chair is on record to have called on MEC Mania to consider expanding the project of learner application pop-up banners to more shopping centers, beyond shopping centers, and over a longer period to assist more of our parents. This was a program which we called for initially in the time of MEC Schaefer, and even actively went out to these pop-up banners to support the staff of WCED in doing their work. We thus welcome the department's commitment to provide more budget to expand this project. This program should be fully funded and be implemented every year beyond shopping centers to spaces such as taxi ranks, for example. The moratorium blocking school closures announced by MEC Mania in the sitting of the 8th of September this year will have an impact on the budget which must be considered. This moratorium, however, is a victory for all progressive forces in the province. It is, however, disheartening that the Education Department has recently attempted to close Vleiplaas NG Primary School near Barrydale in the constituency of the Honourable Vin Vogel, despite this moratorium. On 24th of October this year, I wrote to MEC Mania seeking clarity on whether the moratorium covered the planned closure of Vleyplaas. The MEC replied as follows: in the case of Vleyplaas, the owners of the school building have indicated that they are not prepared to enter into a new contract with the department. This response by the MEC indicated the department's resolve to still close the school and to use the owners as a scapegoat. I need to therefore acknowledge the efforts of dedicated education activist Ms. Vanessa Leroux of the Parents for Equal Education in South Africa for her fundamental role in collaborative efforts to now keep the school open. Ms. Leroux did the job that officials in the department were supposed to do by engaging the owners towards reaching a workable solution so that the school does not close. Honourable Chairperson, I want to raise concerns with regards to WCED's inconsistent treatment of school principals. The MEC has protected the principal of Zwanswijk High School in Tokai, who faced serious maladministration allegations
Member,
and bullying.
your time is up. You can conclude.
I'm concluding, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, the African National Congress will not support this particular debate. We won't support a debate or a vote of a democratic alliance that's based on neoliberal austerity measures, that has got a premier that plunges this House into disorder because he interferes with the running of this House by interfering on who must lead this House. I thank you.
Your time is up. Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Member Makamba Boja.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, through you, I want the Minister of Education to take note of what we're saying as EFF, that we are not impressed in the manner in which the Western Cape Department of Education handles matters that involves racial tension in our schools. The latest incident, Madam Chair, is one from the Fishhook High School, which involves the Race Diversity Intervention Program. The recent racial tension in that school began when a white teacher uttered slurs against non-white learners during an Afrikaans lesson. Instead of taking this white teacher to task, Madam Chair, the department and the school tried to sweep the matter under the carpet. Now, when aggrieved learners and parents raise their concerns, the department now wants to seem to be doing something by introducing the so-called Race Diversity Intervention Program, which in essence had to be carried out in a manner that will nest the egos of the same racist. After realizing that, Madam Chair, the program is not being taught according to their own wishes, the department now wants to kill a career and a company owned by a Black woman who tried to contribute to the discourse of racism in a robust manner by reading a certain poem. Madam Chair, the department is now in partnerships with organizations such as AfriForum in an endeavor to shift focus from the white racist teacher to an innocent Black woman whose only sin in their eyes was to read an existing poem which speaks on the issues of racism. We all know, Madam Chair, by now that this department is failing dismally to carry out its duties of placing learners going forward because of its DNA. Moreover, House Chair, the department should also note that the period of colonialism and racism is over, and white people will not dictate on how we should address issues of racism. We are not going to address issues of racism in a manner that will make the
Honourable Member.
On that note, Honourable Chairperson, the EFF will not support this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Member Christians.
Thank you, Chairperson. And the ACDP, as we said, support the budget vote. But I want to bring a couple of concerns again to the Minister. And the concerns are, one, the department has increased the no-fee paying schools, but communities still struggling must pay something like 1,000 or more for stationery. They don't have money, but they are still burdened to pay stationery money. And if they don't do that, they're in trouble because they are burdened with those amounts. Another question to the Minister, we heard now again in the last time, report cards are held back by schools for people not paying school fees again. So if the minister can give us a clear indication what is the policy of his department. Another big concern, and I've mentioned it so many times, a child in Manenberg that applies to Wynberg does not get accepted because, as the minister indicated, when we look at the traumatic experiences by a bullet,
include your
or the overcrowding of schools. That's why people want to give their children better education, quality education, and they're not receiving. We're not on par when it comes to quality education. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Member Brinkes.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, the Al Jamaa Party cannot support this budget on education, as it is evident that the budget is not effectively aimed to solve crucial issues negatively impacting on the education of the poor. We have seen how this DA-run province wastes money on court cases against the progressive principal of Heathfield High School, Mr. Wesley Newman. This department is even harassing educators who are supporting Mr. Newman. Not only wasting money on trumped-up charges against Mr. Newman, but also denying our children on the Cape Flats good teachers. We will not support this budget to build your unisex toilets at schools. We will not support this budget as it is not effectively addressing the need for safe and secure school environments. I thank you, Honourable House Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Member Bartman.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, at the end of last week, Member Ricardo McKenzie actually dubbed our Minister of Education as vinnige fani. And I just want us to note that it's quite ironic because in Afrikaans netball slang, the vinnige fani actually refers to the vee position in Afrikaans, or verdedigende vleuel. And I would like to testify to the fact that in this particular year, the Department of Education has truly been at the forefront of defending quality education for every child in every school in this province. Together, the health and education budgets make up to over 168 billion rand over the MTEF period, or approximately 73% of the total budget. And I would firstly like to congratulate the previous Minister of Education, Ms. Debbie Schaffer, for achieving the unqualified order for the department for the past financial year, as well as achieving 100% expenditure on infrastructure for the department, which is contained in the annual report of the department on page 12, which was tabled at this particular house. Honourable House Chair, Minister Maine announced recently also that it would be constructing an additional 842 classrooms in the current financial year, which far exceeds the construction of 212 classrooms last year, and as such will provide for at least 26,000 places for learners. This Western Cape groundbreaking initiative will almost be 70% larger than the building of 499 classrooms, which Gauteng announced in the beginning of this year in comparison. And thus the construction of these classrooms is thus crucial in sustaining our teaching capacity, and the WCED has indicated its commitment to working through the holiday season to make this happen. You see, Honourable Chairperson, verdedigende vleuel het visie en sy prioriteite is reg. Honourable House Chair, our educators are... May I continue? Honourable House Chair, educators are our frontline workers, and without them we cannot achieve quality education. The WCED announced the appointment of up to 1,143 additional educators in 2023, and the estimated cost of the additional educator posts will amount to approximately 503.4 million rand. This will bring the amount of the teachers' posts to over 36,000 for the 2023 year, and will contribute to quality education in the province. And the WCED will also be permanently employing 500 qualified grade R teachers in the beginning of 2023. I would like to take this moment also to congratulate Pinelands North Primary and West End Primary for making it to the top 3 and top 10 in the World's Best Schools competition for overcoming adversity, Honourable House Chair. Further, as the House may be aware, earlier this year, the WCED took on the responsibility of the Early Childhood Development Centres from the Provincial Department of Social Development. There are now 1,613 certified ECD centres in the Western Cape that are financially supported by the WCED in order for them to carry out their operations. For those ECDs who have still not submitted their respective documents or submitted incorrect documents, we encourage them to contact the department in this regard, as they may know that they can only receive their funding if their documents are in order as per conditional grant criteria. Additionally, the WCED has spent more than 9.5 million rand on the Blocks for Growth and Step Up programs, which will provide 4 and 5-year-olds and 5 to 6-year-olds respectively with the opportunity to progress developmentally so that they can meet the demands of their learning environments. These funds are thus managed by our two social service organizations, namely the Learning Initiative and Knysna Education Trust. Honourable House Chair, during the course of this year, the WCED also updated the committee on the 2023 admissions process for grade 1 and grade 8 learners. After receiving over 117,000 applications for the 2023 school year, at that time 89.1% had already been placed as at 3 November this year, with the remainder are in the process of being placed. And of the total applications submitted, approximately 22,113 were received late. This figure excludes the expected late applications which the WCED expects to receive towards the end of the year. We note that the WCED is working around the clock to still place approximately 12,000 grade 1 and 8 learners for the next year. Honourable House Chair, page 3 of that report, it's 12,000, not 25. In comparison, the ENCA reported on 27 November this year that Gauteng had over 35,000 grade 1 and grade 8 learners still to place for the new year, almost triple that of what the Western Cape is facing. And this is largely due to migration across provinces to particularly urban centres. If there are any parents who have yet to submit their children's applications, they must do so urgently and contact their respective district officers. And if there are any appeals, they must, in respect to their child's placement, we recommend that they contact the Minister's office in this regard. Honourable House Chair, in March this year, it was also revealed that the current growth rate of students taking at least one technical agricultural subject is 3.26%, which exceeds the annual target of 2% this year. This is further proof of the essential role the industry plays in our province and economy, as well as the need to continue supporting education in this regard. Agriculture, as well as computational skills and the arts, forms part of the WCED Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, Mathematics, Agriculture and Coding, or STEAMAC strategy, which aims to directly prepare learners for the career in these respective fields. Last year, the department spent 2.6 million rand in incorporating the disciplines of IT, arts subjects, consumer studies, agricultural technology, and agriculture management practices into STEAMAC. However, these developments further build on the programs that have been made over the years. And since 2015, the WC has then added 25 more schools which offer agricultural subjects. Infrastructure allocations were initially made in 2020 to allow 7 schools to accommodate agricultural technology, which was further expanded by 11 schools during the last financial year. It is clear that agriculture and coding will become more crucial in the education packages for our province has to offer. And in August this year, the WCED also revealed that it planned to establish 500 robotic and coding clubs in primary and high schools by 2024. The fourth industrial revolution is playing a significant role in transforming the economy and society. And in South Africa alone, there are thousands of jobs in this sector where there are not enough candidates to apply, and is therefore crucial for our learners to easily integrate into an increasingly digitalized world. Already, the WCED has 211 robotic and coding pilot schools in place and has achieved 500 cost-effective robotic kits for schools, several coding and robotic committees, teacher orientation and training, as well as teacher professional development, the appointment of Deputy Chief Education Specialist in the WCED, which is a first in South Africa, and greater collaboration between directorates to ensure efficiency in this regard. While there is still a lot of work to be done, the Western Cape is laying the foundation for education to stay current, impactful and useful for our children. Vinnige Fani se prioriteite is reg, House Chair. The Honourable House Chair, the long-term well-being of delivering inclusive education, previously known as special needs education for learners, still remains a funding concern, and it is currently not included in the National Treasury calculations for the Provincial Equitable Share formula. Without proper resources, the Western Cape's progress will continue to be undermined, despite the budgetary...
Honourable Member, can you take your seat? Minister Shana, I recognize you.
Honourable House Chair, is it appropriate for a member to call the Speaker a blue liar? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Honorable member, you are not honorable member Sayed, I recognize you. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. My understanding, Honorable House Chair, is that we just had the motion, which was now passed for the vacancy of the speaker to be filled.
That is not the
I don't know
point
which
of
speaker
order.
the Honorable Fernandez is referring
Deputy
to.
Whip
We
of
don't
the
have a speaker as
opposition.
yet.
That is not the point of order. And honorable member Van Vogel, honorable member Van Vogel, honorable members, honorable member Van Vogel, you are not even on your seat. Can you really go to your seat so that I can be able to talk to you? Honorable member Van Vogel, may I address you? When you said the blue light is there, did you say that to any member in the House? No. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. We'll deal with learning losses in our education system soon because there is a difference between a small S in a sentence and a big S in a sentence as well. Honourable House Chair, despite the budgetary pressures experienced in inclusive education, even the National Department of Education has welcomed the advances the Western Cape province had made. The Western Cape is the first province to have established inclusive education outreach teams who work in our 8 districts, of which there are 22 already in operation. These teams also join 64 circuit support teams, wherein each has a psychologist, social worker, and learning support advisor. The WCED has also launched a pilot with the Red Cross Memorial Hospital in relation to the policy of screening, identification, assessment, and support. This policy forms part of the framework as to how one determines whether the child needs to be placed in a special school. And with the cooperation of 6 doctors at this hospital, the WCED has automated this process, which will allow greater efficiency in this regard. This process will also be reviewed with the hope that it will be rolled out to other large hospitals in the province. Further, the WCED has also recognized the need for staff to be able to accommodate all learners and has begun the teaching for all modules. Thank you, Honourable House Chair. This project, which entails 4 modules, aims to provide teachers with the skills needed for inclusive education. And while current teachers are being trained in cohorts, these modules will eventually become mandatory for teachers still undergoing the respective training. All newly built schools in this category are also being built for accessibility for students with mobility difficulties, and at least 2 current schools per district are being upgraded every year. In terms of literacy and numeracy learning losses, House Chair, as we all know, the pandemic has had profound consequences on our learning outcomes following the loss of face-to-face teaching. And this translated into continual and steady progress which the WC had made during the years preceding COVID-19 being undone. We saw this in the Western Cape systemic tests last year, the only province with such tests, where both pass rates and averages in mathematics and languages decreased since 2019. And Honourable House Chair, this is something that was experienced throughout our country. But here in the Western Cape, we did not sit and wait around. This is why the WCED instituted its Back on Track recovery plan by allocating an additional 2 hours of group guided reading and 1 hour of mathematics every week. It is expected that every foundation phase learner will gain an extra 60 hours of learning over the course of the 3rd and 4th term. And it is encouraging to hear from the Minister that 94% of teachers want this to continue in 2023, and the WCED has thus made the recommendation to National to also implement this across the country. Further, House Chair, the WCED has facilitated the establishment of 571 food gardens at schools and has appointed 146 gardeners to ensure that these are sustained. Further, in the current financial year, more than 451 million rand has been allocated to the National Schools Nutrition Program, which is a conditional grant, which includes 1,024 schools and feeds over 500,000 learners. While there is no doubt that this program ensures that many children do not go hungry, we are concerned about how the national quintile system is excluding learners in need. The system does not speak to the socioeconomic status of the student and therefore results in inefficient funding being allocated to the provincial departments and thus the respective schools. Thankfully, through savings that have been made in this program, the WCED was able to fund selected quintile 4 to 5 schools for 190 days of the year. And we encourage the department to expedite its expenditure on the program for the rest of the financial year. Honourable House Chair, this budget further makes provision for the development of competency-based assessments for schools as it will be implemented by the Department of the Premier, as well as making 2.7 million rand available for the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport for the at-home learning program. Of the rollovers, of the 16 million rand of rollovers from national is for committed expenditure, which will be for math, science and technology expenditure conditional grant on page 69 of the budget, as well as for learners with profound intellectual disabilities conditional grant, also on page 69 of the respective budget. And the rest of the rollovers will be for the courier fees for June and November 2021 national senior exams. Honourable House Chair, I would like to conclude by thanking the members of the Education Committee, our procedural and administrative staff of the committee, the Minister of Education, the HOD, the departmental team for their hard work during this past year. And we hope to welcome them back in the new year refreshed. House Chair, I would also like to take a moment to pay tribute to the late Chief Whip Lorraine Botha, who was also the previous Education Committee chairperson and who worked hard every single day to ensure that everything we do is in the best interest of the child. Ons hoop dat ons braaf genoeg is om aan haar nalatenskap te kan voldoen. We still have a lot to improve on in education, but we will continue working towards quality education for every child in every school in this province. The House Chair, the Democratic Alliance supports this vote. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognize Minister David Maynard.
Thank you, Chairperson. As I stated during the debate, I want us to have more beautiful, safe, inspiring schools in poor communities to deliver better opportunities and brighter futures and hope for all our children. We are taking bold steps to expand the number of places for learners in our schools by building schools and classrooms at an unprecedented rate and significantly increasing the number of teaching posts in our schools. And our interventions to reverse learning losses caused by the COVID-19 pandemic are bearing fruit, with the potential to be adopted across the country. I'd like to thank members of the House for their contributions to this debate, and I'd like to address a couple of the issues raised. First, on the whole question of ECD. The shifting of these funds, as the Honourable Member must know, will have no impact on ECD provision, as of course the funds come from the Grade R sub-programme. And this, of course, is due to the relatively lower cost requirements than projected at the start of the financial year, because the program, as the Honourable Member knows, will now be implemented only from January 2023. When it comes to learner placements, we have briefed the committee in detail, and what the Honourable Member appears not to have heard is that by the 3rd of November 2022, the department had placed 100,302, or 89.1% of Grade 1 and Grade 8 learners for the 2023 school year here in the Western Cape. On the whole question of Fish-Hoek High School, we have been absolutely clear that what happened at Fish-Hoek High School should never have happened, and a full investigation is underway. That investigation is currently ongoing. And of course, to the extent that there may need to be interventions, they should always be aimed at building unity and deepening understanding rather than causing division and hurt at our schools, as appears to have been the case at Fish-Hoek High School. On the whole question of the Vleiplas primary school, the Honourable Member is correct. The owners of the school building have indicated that they are not prepared to enter into a new contract with the department. And I can assure the Honourable Member that we are negotiating with the owner, and I expect such discussions to reach finality soon. I am concerned. I am concerned to hear about schools with withholding reports, and indeed schools where parents cannot afford stationery. We do provide assistance, and I would be delighted if the Honourable Furlong Christians would provide me with particulars of the matters which he raised so that we can deal with those schools. The whole question of Wesley Newman and Heathfield High School, the Honourable Member knows that the ELRC Commissioner has conducted a pre-arbitration meeting with the agreement of all parties present, and dates have now been agreed to. I think we should not forget that Wesley Newman was found guilty of a number of serious charges. He was nonetheless offered a second chance. He was offered a second chance, which he rejected, and he was thus dismissed. We, of course, Honourable Member, are now focused on ensuring that teaching and learning at Heathfield High School continues in the best interests of the learners in a safe environment without disruption. I want to make it clear that we will not tolerate any attempts to disrupt and undermine teaching and learning at Heathfield High School. Now, the Honourable Khalid Sahed, if Honourable Members recall, made a lot of noise about not receiving the budget books during the debate. But the real question, Chairperson, is, well, to what end? Because it does not appear that the Honourable Member reads the budget books. He claims that spending on infrastructure is slow. But indeed, if he paid attention to page 78 of the budget book, it says very clearly that spending, and I quote, spending is higher. And if he took the time to calculate the difference between spending on table 5.3 compared to table 5.4, he would find, in fact, that we have spent 260 million rand more on infrastructure this year compared to the same time last year. Perhaps I could call on the Honourable Minister of Finance to convene a workshop for the Honourable Member. Now, the Honourable... Now,
Honourable members.
The Honourable Khalid...
Honourable members, we can't hear the speaker. Please settle down. Go on, Minister.
Honourable Chairperson, the Honourable Khalid Said makes another extraordinary claim, and that is that this is an austerity budget. Well, how do we explain the 6 billion rand increase to the education baseline, the 2.5 billion rand infrastructure budget, which is increased by 830 million rand. The 1,143 additional posts. Now, I ask honourable members, does this sound like an austerity budget? No. No. This is a massive expansion in the budget. And a massive increase in access to education in the Western Cape. Chairperson, in closing, this budget is indeed a framework for hope. Hope for our parents, hope for our teachers, and hope for our children. We know that we will face challenges as we seek to implement our bold new agenda for education. And we've been frank with this House about the nature of the risks involved. But as I said earlier, this is not a reason not to try. We will overcome those challenges if we keep in mind this central goal, the unity, the equality, and the well-being of our children. And we will overcome those challenges, indeed, if we all work together to achieve the vision of quality education for every child in every classroom, in every school in the Western Cape.
May you take your seat,
I thank
please?
you.
Member, is that a point of order?
Is the Honourable MEC able to take a question? Given that he doesn't respond, takes long to
May
respond.
sit down.
Is he able to respond to a
Minister,
question on the spending?
Sit down. I heard you, Minister. Do you want to take a question?
Chairperson, I mean, this once again raises the question of whether there's not a requirement for another workshop, because in fact I had completed my speech and can't answer a question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes the debate on this vote. The Secretary will read the fifth order of the day.
Debate on Vote 7, Social Development Western Cape Adjustment Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much, honourable members. I now recognize Minister Fernandez.
Honourable House Chairperson, Honourable Premier and Cabinet colleagues, Honourable members of the Provincial Legislature in the House and on the virtual platform, members of the media, citizens of the Western Cape. Good afternoon, goeiemiddag, molweni nonke, assalamu alaikum. I rise to table the adjustment budget for Vote 7 as South Africa continues with its economic recovery following the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Good afternoon. We are still feeling the global effects of the Russia-Ukraine war, and as a country, we are battered by rolling blackouts, which have a disproportionate impact on the lives and livelihoods of the most vulnerable in society. The Department of Social Development has not been immune to the economic challenges and constraints imposed on the rest of the world and South Africa over the last few turbulent years. But we remain resolute in our commitment to serving the most vulnerable with the limited resources and budgetary constraints so prevalent in all governments across our country. One glimmer of hope is the 79.7 million rand increase in additional funding in our adjustment budget. This allocation increased our initial 2.2 billion rand budget to 2.3 million rand. This increase will allow us to expand our current services in some areas such as food relief. Honourable House Chairperson, with this increase, we will be able to allocate 25 million rand towards food relief for social relief of distress. The food relief program will be extended to all municipal districts through the support the department gives to community nutrition and development centres and community kitchens. 7.5 million rand of the additional funding will address food shortages in areas without department-funded food relief programs, as well as at existing sites where current food resources have not been sufficient to assist all beneficiaries in need. We are looking to extend the feeding days in vulnerable communities from 2 to 5 days a week, and 6.8 million rand has been allocated for community-based organizations to provide meals in rural areas 5 days a week, while 6.7 million rand will go towards those kitchens in urban areas for feeding 4 days a week. Over 2.7 million rand has been allocated to these community-based organizations to cushion them against rising food costs, transport, and gas prices. The department will also utilize 959,000 rand to procure food parcels for immediate relief as and when required. In this way, we will continue to address the dire need in areas across the Western Cape where the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted communities who are experiencing poverty, unemployment, and socio-economic distress, which has in many cases plunged households below the breadline. It is important, House Chair, to note that disaster relief is not this department's mandate, but it is that of the South African Social Security Agency. We have to time and time again stand in the gap where and when this national agency falls short. We have to do this while still meeting our core priorities, often with staff and resources stretched to the limit. However, we do so for the people of this province. We do so to remind citizens that we are a caring government and that we will do all we can to ensure that the knock-on effects of poverty, such as limited access to job opportunities, substance use disorder, crime, and interpersonal violence and abuse, GBV especially, are addressed. We have also heard the pleas from our social workers who tirelessly work to ensure that the needs of communities are met, often at great personal cost to themselves. In the wake of the COVID disaster and the current economic crisis, the need for psychosocial support to citizens has increased, making it more important than ever before for us to increase resources in these areas and these services. 43.9 million rand has been allocated to ensure the department can sustain its need for social service professional capacity. This will cover the shortfall attributable to the implementation of the 3% wage increase, grade progress payouts to social work professionals, and provision for leave gratuity and early retirement pension payouts. It has allowed us, Honourable House Chair, to immediately fill 54 vacant posts, of which 39 are social work professionals. In doing so, we also aim to strengthen the department's contribution to the Provincial Safety Plan, especially by addressing gender-based violence and child protection in communities. Many of these social workers and social auxiliary workers are being placed in safety hotspot areas where crimes against women and children are rife. These critical posts will support child protection services and gender-based violence interventions. They will also offer relief to those social work professionals who are spread thin on the ground, especially in these areas with high rates of violence against women, children, and members of the LGBTQIA+ community. Honourable House Chair, 6.3 million rand was approved for rollover from the previous year and has been allocated for the modification, customization, and operations of vehicles for the transport of intellectually disabled children. Thus far, we have handed over 4 vehicles to NGOs assisting children with severe to profound intellectual disabilities. The department has placed an order for another 2 vehicles to ensure we fulfill our legal obligation of making provision for children with severe to profound intellectual disabilities to attend schools. The department wants to ensure that no girl stays out of school due to a lack of access to sanitary products. We have accordingly allocated 1.5 million rand toward the province's Sanitary Dignity Project, as mandated by national government. This rollover of funds is to settle our prior year's commitment to deliver it in the current financial year. The department, Honourable House Chair, is targeting 300 schools across the province because there are certain conditions attached, with the possibility of more schools being accommodated should the Education Department identify further need. 2.2 million rand has been approved for rollover funding towards substance abuse non-profit institutions. This funding is aimed at mitigating the impact of budget cuts in the substance abuse program. The department has had to make significant reduction in services in both community-based treatment and residential centres due to funding shortages in the current year's budget. Honourable House Chair, substance abuse is a contributing factor to many social ills, like gender-based violence, domestic violence, child abuse, unemployment, and crime. The interventions we were able to introduce to reduce these problems were detrimentally impacted due to the slashing of funds earlier in the year. Honourable House Chair, we have been able to reallocate a significant amount of funds towards necessary expenses for the good of our communities. Funds were reclassified towards the transport project to operationalize the modified specialized vehicles. This will enable us to support NGOs that provide services to persons with disabilities. With in-person interactions picking up post-COVID, the department has seen the increased need for social workers to travel to the people who require their services most. Travel and subsistence funds have been reprioritized towards fleet travel costs for social workers who need to travel extensively in government garage vehicles in order to ensure the psychosocial needs of communities are met. It will also be allocated for subsistence programs like parenting workshops where the provision of food is needed for parent attendees from impoverished households. The COVID-19 pandemic, the global economic turmoil caused by warring nations, and subsequent rising cost of living have thrown us into choppy waters, which has been exacerbated by the plundering of the public purse, maladministration, and corruption on an unprecedented level by a corrupt ANC government. It has not been easy to steer the ship, but we will keep hope alive. As a department and as a government, we have tried to the best of our ability to make miracles happen with the limited funding allocated to the province by National Treasury. Although we have been able to fill vacant social work posts, much more is needed. We have social work professionals close to burning out and facing harassment when assisting clients and an increasing need for services. Yet the funding required to alleviate the burden is inadequate. The people of the Western Cape are placing their hope in our hands, yet it is being tied by a national government far removed from the reality of the lived experiences of those on the ground. Although we are near the end of 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children, we are committed to continuing the fight against the scourge 365 days a year. I believe if we stand united with one voice 365 days of a year, the second silent pandemic of gender-based violence can be drastically reduced. I am therefore appealing to members of this august House to collaborate and actively champion GBV awareness and education in your respective constituencies. Honourable House Chairperson, I wish to thank my Cabinet colleagues at the Executive Council, led by Premier Alan Winde, for their continuous support and motivation. I am also grateful to the Department of Social Development, led by HOD Dr. Robert MacDonald, for their tireless efforts and commitment to serving the most vulnerable citizens of this province on a daily basis. Every staff member in Team DSD is making a contribution, and for that, I wish to say, I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Honourable Member Baku Force.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. The ANC reject this budget. While the 79 million in the budget is noted, we are, however, concede that this budget does not get near addressing some of the most pressing challenges in the province. 43 million on this budget comes from the national government to make provision for the impact of the 2022 3% wage increase. This means the increase is mainly towards the conversation of employees. We are very disturbed with the department's cut of 5.3 million for compensation of employees when we have been making calls on the department to create opportunities for unemployment social workers, graduates. Yes, we take note of the fact that the minister mentioned that they have employed social workers, but still we believe that this amount could have been spent to create more employment opportunities for these much needed social workers. There is a great demand for social work graduates in schools, and we do have sufficient supply of this. Only thing that is lacking is the budget. We have been advised the MEC and the department to engage the Western Cape Education Department to form a partnership that will see these graduates deployed in schools. To this day, this has not happened and we do not know why. Chairperson, the ANC welcomes the additional 25 million allocation for the provisions for food relief for social distress. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, the ANC was among the first to call for this food relief program to be continued. Our people are hungry and suffering from the increased cost of living. Many have lost their jobs as the economy is recovering slowly from the impact of COVID-19 and has been impacted by the ongoing global conflicts. It is for this reason that we believe this food relief must be a core mandate of this department with an annual budget. This should not be a once-off allocation that can be discontinued next year. Chairperson, we are on day 11 of the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. We continue to remember all those victims of GBV and femicide. This department is taking the lead in coordinating this government's response to gender-based violence and femicide. We are having this debate a week after the release of the second quarter crime statistics, which showed a 23.6% in sexual offenses. I wonder where is the safe plan. It is highly disappointing that no provision is made in this budget to respond to such a high increase. Hence, the Premier will always say we have a safety plan. Even the members of the blue overalls or baggies will say we have a safe plan, which is served in other countries. Or other provinces that we don't know, but not here in the Western Cape. This budget is allocating 68 million for the victim empowerment program. This small amount is too little to address the 23.6% rise in sexual offenses. Clearly, the department has failed to prioritize the safety of women and children. As the ANC want the department and provincial government to increase the budget for victim empowerment. Chairperson, the budget for service to the persons with disability program has been increased by 7.2 million to 198.9 million. While this increase is welcomed, we have to ask if this is enough to ensure the protection of persons with disabilities. More NPOs in the rural communities must be prioritized for funding in order to ensure that the department has footprint in areas where the services are needed. If there weren't enough NPOs in Duli, for instance, the department wouldn't rely on us as the ANC to give them information about Miss Cynthia Bless, who continues to live in an abandoned building with his physical challenged son. I welcome the acting HOD's commitment to follow up on the matter of Ms. Bless. Ms. Bless, an elderly woman and her son must prioritize for a house, and this department must take the lead in ensuring that no other elderly person and the disabled person do not suffer the same fate as Ms. Bless. I hope the Minister of Human Settlement is listening. Chairperson, we note with concern that funds for the Child and Protection Program have shifted to another sub-program as a result of closure of NPOs. A closure of NPOs will have devastating impacts on children in the province. This also means that people will lose jobs. We do not know the reason for the closure of NPOs, but we hope it is not because of non-compliance. We have been calling on the department to assist NPOs with compliance. The reduced budget for compensation of employees could have gone a long way to employ more staff members to assist NPO to be compliant. More NPOs working with children have received warning them of possible reduced budget allocation for next financial year. This will have a negative impact on this organization and on children. This decision by the department will lead to job losses and to a closure of more NPOs. The ANC is opposed to this plan reduced budget for NPOs working with children. We want the MEC to tell us the reason for these plans cuts. The ANC reject this budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Member Makamba Buja, I recognize you.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, early this year during his State of Province address, the Premier of this province made an empty promise that shelters will be made available for homeless people. However, Madam Chair, if one is to take a simple walk from CPUT campus in District 6 and walk along the outskirts of the Castle of Good Hope, then one would realize that the plight of homeless poor people does not matter to the Democratic Alliance provincial government. This situation, Madam Chair, of homeless people who were sleeping inside plastics and eating from the bins at the time of that speech early this year is very much the same, if not even worse. Now, as I stand before you, we see billions of rands being appropriated to the Provincial Department of Social Development, and now they are to receive another extra 79.7 million, but homeless people continue to suffer more. Madam Chair, homeless people group whose rights continue to be violated on a daily basis. They remain in education coupled with health, include mental health. It is therefore, Madam Chair, becomes difficult, if not impossible, for most of them to know their rights and exercise them. It is then this reason that a pro-rich provincial government such as this one neglects them. Madam Chair, it can never be right that it can never be right to say you have a budget for homeless people in your coffers and then not spend the budget on them. The DA-led government must understand that taxpayers' money does not belong to them. In this country, we have laws governing socio-economic rights, which are entrenched in the South African Constitution. Madam Chair, making shelter, food, and other necessities available to homeless people is a constitutional obligation required from the government by the Constitution. It can never be that in every financial year, money is being surrendered to the Provincial Revenue Fund and under expenditure, but then people remain poor and homeless. On that note, Madam Chair, the EFF does not support this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I now recognize Honorable Member Dan Plato.
Honorable House Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity. The past 2 years have been very hard. We have suffered through 2 years of COVID. We have seen the cost of living skyrocket, with basic necessities such as fuel and bread becoming unaffordable for far too many of our citizens. In part, this is a result of circumstances out of many South Africans' control. And in part, it is due to the endemic corruption and maladministration which have infested this country for many years. But, Honourable House Chair, the only reason I make these statements is to have them on record. Our people do not need to be told these things because they are aware of them already. They know the price of bread and that of fuel. They know how much they are owed in grants, and they know the grants that they are given pale in comparison to massive inflation and an ever-rising cost of living. They know these things because they experience them every day. They do not need me or anyone else to remind them. What our people are crying out for is leadership, credible leadership, leadership to take charge of the country, to take charge of situations and issues. And it is on us as elected representatives to give it to them. We can no longer sit back and accept the situation we are in. Yes, COVID and the war in Ukraine have damaged our economy, even the economies across the world. Yes, national government is constantly corrupt. The only question is, what are we going to do about it? The issues around the head of President Ramaphosa is not helping. It is just corruption from the top to the lowest level, and as a result, not enough budget for service delivery. In any other country from the west to the east, the president would have resigned already. Only in South Africa, the actions around the president get seen as common practice. Even the ANC's own poor suffer as a result. Honourable Chairperson, spending tens of millions more on social services is a good place to start. In tabling this budget, Minister Wenger told us that there is reason for us to be cautiously optimistic about our economy's future. Our provincial GDP is growing, our tourism sector is recovering, and the newly released employment figures show that we are fixing unemployment in the Western Cape, but we still have a long, long way to go. This adjustment allocation of almost 80 million to the Department of Social Development will ensure that the poorest of the poor are not left behind as the province's economy grows. In fact, this spending decision demonstrates in clear terms the ultimate goal of this government, to leverage economic growth to help the underprivileged and to eradicate poverty, unemployment and inequality. But if we can deal with corruption in this country, we can do much, much more. Corruption is hampering budgets around the country, not only in this province, in the Eastern Cape, in Northwest, in the Northern Cape, all over. It's a free-for-all to take from the poorest of the poor. That is why we do not have enough budget available for our services in this province. But we welcome the increase in budget. This increase is important. And I do thank national government for taking enough responsibility to ensure that we have the funding we need to support that increase in our province. But the stark truth is that national government's funding does nothing to move us forward and to fix the social ills which plague our country.
Honourable Member, can you sit down, please? Honourable members from the opposition, can you please just not drown the speaker? Let honourable members, let's allow honourable member to speak. I think the other speakers will listen to them, so it will be adding value to you also to listen from both sides. Also, honourable members from my right-hand side, just give a member a chance for you to listen to his debate. You've been doing well throughout the day. Continue that way. Member Plato, over to you, sir.
Honourable House Chair, that is why I'm so pleased to see that the Western Cape government have seen an increase in the budget for the Department of Social Development. This is the money that will make meaningful change in the lives of those who rely on the work of the Department of Social Development. This is the money that will pay for more social workers, as we have heard, more feeding schemes, as we have heard, more substance abuse treatment facilities, as we have heard. It is money that will fund initiatives such as sanitary dignity projects. and also to fight gender-based violence and for the support of this 16 days of activism drive countrywide. It is important for us to be seen focusing on that issue as well. This budget is one which inspires hope, something which is so desperately needed in our country today. A wise man once said that we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Honourable Chair, this government has demonstrated and continues to demonstrate that it will give, it will stand by the sick, by the poor, and the hungry against whatever adversity may come. With this budget, we begin the process of rebuilding and of moving our province forward. This adjustment will allow the Department of Social Development to continue with its important task of providing vital services for the poor and the vulnerable in our province, and empowering them so that all of us in this province can move forward and grow into the future together. But I have to repeat, and I will continue to repeat this. If corruption by the ANC government was being dealt with appropriately, and if they stop stealing from the purse, more budget will be available for the poorest of the poor to deal with the poorest of the poor's issues. There will be hard times ahead, Honourable Chair, especially for as long as the ANC continues to rule. But that will not stop us. This government and this minister care deeply about the people of the Western Cape, even when our opposition does not.
Honourable
This
members,
government
really,
will continue to do everything it can.
Member Plato, may you take your seat? Honourable members, the more the speaker is trying to make sure that you hear him, you also raise your voices. Members, please just keep the decorum of the House so that we continue with the debate.
This government will continue to do everything it can to improve the lives of our citizens, even when it is not seen and when it does not result in votes. For these reasons, Honourable Chair, I will support vote 7, and I urge every other member of this House to vote with me for a budget that puts our people first. Thank you.
Amandla belongs to the ANC.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member Plato. I now recognize Minister Fernandez.
Honourable House Chair, allow me to thank the members for their contribution to the debate. To the Honourable Baku Force, your inputs are legitimate, and I echo your sentiments. However, the fiscal constraints are real, and unfortunately, as much as I would want to expand the VEP program or substance use disorder program, we have to cut our cloth according to what it is we have. To the Honourable Member Kambabotia, I would want to say that you too the Honourable Member raises legitimate inputs on homelessness. But in this regard, I wish to advise that DSD has increased the number of funded bed spaces for homeless shelters by over 800 in the past 15 months. We have moved from 1,500 funded bed spaces to 2,298 in the last little while. We have also made provision of 18 million rand to build a homeless shelter in the CBD. The memorandum of understanding is well underway between DSD and Public Works, and we have in the last quarter increased our subsidized beds to shelters in Alsis River, Fish Hoek, Philippi, and Wellington. So we are, despite the challenges, making huge efforts to try and address the gaps, the immediate gaps that affect the most vulnerable. Honourable House Chairperson, in closing, I would want to thank the committee chairperson, the committee members, especially the Honourable Baku Vos, who often provides, and I'm not singling out, but I do have to say, Honourable Baku Vos engages in a positive manner. She will follow up with me after any sitting or session and say, Minister, can you assist? and I would try my best to ensure that we assist with the immediate needs. So, Honourable Baku Vos, thank you to you, the Honourable Makamba Botcha, and my DSD colleagues for their input. Thank you for holding the department to account in a very robust manner, but yet in a very dignified and respectful manner. I appreciate the engagement. I also wish to thank the committee coordinator for her support and the professional manner in which she conducts herself. I would then like to say thank you to my cabinet colleagues, to Premier in absentia, and then to the team from the Department of Social Development, to Dr. Robert MacDonald, our HOD, the senior management team, some of which are present here today, and the entire team DSD. They have really led and steered the ship through difficult waters and real choppy waters, and yet we have managed to come through. I think the department also needs to be credited for a 9th clean audit. So to the individuals sitting in the box, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And then finally, in closing, I need to acknowledge the ministry staff under the very capable leadership of Ms. Ananda Nal, our head of ministry. The ministry staff are indeed the wind beneath my wings. They provide me with constant motivation and support, and their dedication in resolving issues, especially those raised by members of this august House, as swiftly as possible, makes me very proud to lead Team DSD. Honourable Deputy Speaker, on that note, I wish to thank every single member and ask them, in closing, will you please assist us in becoming ambassadors for gender-based violence and femicide by spreading the message of hope and keeping it alive for 365 days, not just 16 days. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes the vote.
Thank you.
Honourable members, order please. That concludes the vote on vote 7. Honourable members, I thank you very much. I am now just going to deal with the side motion. Is that a point of order, Honourable Nkondlo?
It's a point of exigency in my other life. I just want to clap for my MEC Maynir. I didn't clap for him.
Thank you. I'd like to proceed. Honourable members, if I can have your indulgence. Order. I've received a confirmation from the Secretary that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has submitted a notice of motion in terms of Rule 151(1) of the Standing Rules at 11:50 this morning. In terms of the rules, the notice of motion must be placed on the order paper and cannot be dealt with today, except with the unanimous concurrence of all members present. Does the Honourable Dugmore wish that the concurrence of all members be obtained in terms of Rule 151(3)?
If I may address you, Deputy Speaker, yes. That is what I would like to request. You would recall, Deputy Speaker, that this morning the House supported a motion that the vacancy be filled, that the Secretary contacts the President of the Constitutional Court to approach a judge to oversee that, and we supported that. In this particular motion, which I'm sure we need to circulate to test the unanimity of the House, it is simply a motion which requests, as we did previously when the other motion was tabled, that all members of this House are provided with information regarding any possible litigation, any other correspondence. So I can't, from my own point of view, see any reason why members of this House would not agree to such a motion. And possibly, I don't know if the table has the motion, but if not, I could actually read it out. What is the procedure?
So you've risen in terms of 151(3) to obtain unanimous
Yes.
Concurrence to move the motion. If you allow me then to proceed. Mr. Dugmore has requested that I determine if there is a unanimous concurrence to allow him to move his motion. Before I ask for concurrence from members of the House to allow the motion to be moved, I shall read out the notice of motion for the benefit of members and for correct procedure, if I may, Honourable Dyke-Moore. I move in terms of Rule 151.1, 151.2 and 151.3 of the Provincial Legislature that this House, noting the resolution adopted by the House, that the Secretary be mandated to deal with all matters regarding possible litigation involving the Legislature, thus resolves that all information received by the Secretary regarding possible litigation is provided to all members before the conclusion of business today. I now put the question to the House. Is there any objection to the motion given notice by Mr. Dyke-Moore, Honourable Member Dyke-Moore, at 11:50 this morning being moved today? If you could just put it, read it into record, Honourable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. In terms of Rule 151, subsection 3, I hereby object. Also noting that the motion you have read out in terms of Rule 60, that no member may reflect upon any decision of this House taken less than 6 months previously, except for the purpose of moving that the decision be amended or rescinded. The motion that you've read out is exactly the powers I've given to the Secretary. But in terms of Rule 151, subsection 3, I hereby object.
Thank you very much, honourable members. Is there a point of order, Honourable Said? You may rise on a point of order.
Chair, I rise on a point of order. The Honourable Deputy Chief Whip, you see, reading out rules just to say I quoted this and quoted that doesn't necessarily mean
order members
that you are speaking to the rule. The Rule 151, subsection 3, which the Honourable Deputy Chief Whip quoted, does not speak to anything that you just said. So, I mean, I don't see the basis for objection.
Thank you very much, Honourable Said. So, I don't want an explanation that I'm going to do the following and follow strict procedure. And the strict procedure was, I asked the question, as there is an objection, and that is for any motion, honourable members, as there is an objection to the motion, may I finish? May I finish? As there is any objection to the motion being moved today, the notice of motion will be placed on the order paper below the line for consideration of a future date. I hereby rule. Thank you very much. Right, thank you. Can we move on to the order of the day, please? Much appreciated. I will now ask Ms. Ndredeni, please, to read the sixth order of the day.
Debate on vote for Community Safety Western Cape Adjustment Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much. We now move over to Honourable Minister Allen. Order members.
I would like to,
Order members, we have lots of guests in the
Deputy
House.
Speaker, I preempted that we will not be having a silent debate. I have preempted, like we have preempted so often, how the opposition will act. However, there was one particular matter when I did not preempt what the opposition will say. And that was when the Honourable Dyke-Moore indicated to the Premier, make Regan the MEC. I do want to say, Member Dyke-Moore, baie dankie. Thank you so much for your support towards this particular role, because I've often said, we won't be able to do it alone as a department. We won't be able to do it alone as a government, and we need communities, we need NGOs, and if I consider the order paper of this entire day, Deputy Speaker, if I consider the order paper of the entire day, it is actually in alignment, because the Western Cape Safety Plan, and the only province that has a comprehensive safety plan that would have a violence prevention leg, but also the law enforcement component. And that whole of government approach with regard to the role that the Department of Health play. And this morning, they have echoed the sentiments and the support in that regard. The role that Treasury plays earlier on, the role that finance and economic opportunities play, the role that education plays, and the role that social development plays, and the role that I will currently discuss is that of community safety. On that particular note, I do want to say I am thinking of our permanent member on the standing committee that is currently not present here today, and I wish a speedy recovery with regard to matters that the permanent member that is not present is dealing with. Because, Chairperson, Deputy Speaker, I want to echo again, I do not think that this entire 4 pages will be silent, but here we go. I want to first and foremost say that we have dedicated officials. And instead of echoing a sentiment at the end of this particular speech, I want to first go to the department. Ek wil sê baie dankie. Thank you so much. The last 7.5 months have been a roller coaster. And I do appreciate the support and the dedication that we have seen from officials. I appreciate the reviews and the sentiment that we often hear from the Standing Committee after we have been held accountable in the Standing Committee. So thank you so much. I'm only able to confidently echo sentiments in this speech. It's because of your work and because of your dedication. So under the leadership of Advocate Pillay, baie dankie. Thank you so much. Because ensuring
Order. Just note, members, I have to really listen carefully because the Honourable Minister is quite far away from my
Because
table.
ensuring safety and security for those who live in South Africa is the responsibility of the South African Police Service as the lead agency. The SAPS, who is managed by the national government, can only effectively fulfill their mandate if they have the required and needed resources. It's a fact that the dedicated and committed men and women in blue have literally been left to fend for themselves. I think from the Standing Committee side as well, Deputy Speaker, we often hear from senior management in our province how they are also relaying messages and correspondence to national government with regard to the under-resourcing. Because if I am allowed to demonstrate this particular point, it is that in the 2011-2012 financial year, the South African Police Service at the national level should have had 157,000 members. 157,000 members. During this period, there was a shortfall of 31,200 members. Fast forward to 2015-2016, there should have been 176,000 SAPS members. They only had 119,000. Today, there should be 193,000 SAPS members. They are sitting on 105,000 members. There needs to be no need to get someone wat wiskunde doen om vir ons dit te kom verduidelik, because it's very clear our SAPS officers on the ground is doing the job of not only 1, 2, 3, of actually 4 people. They are overburdened, overstretched, and we are doing everything in our power to ultimately help and assist them. Before I go on, I was recently now, and I want to thank the Deputy Speaker, that we had an adjournment of an hour and a half in that I could visit Manenberg. Over the last week, there's been multiple shootings in Manenberg, and I was engaging SAPS, Metro Police, traffic, together with our lead deployment, together with the CPF and neighborhood watchers in the Manenberg area, in this regard, to see the collaboration, to see that we are working together. Members in this House is fully aware that we have echoed sentiments that how gangsters and criminals are working together. We are seeing over the last 7 months a steady show towards working together, ultimately holding each other accountable, being real, being open, because I am going to play open cards and say that yes, we have a long way to go, but we are making strides. In the last quarter, we have seen where other provinces are going up in terms of the murder rate by 29%, 31%. Here in the Western Cape, it could have been so much different if it was not for provincial government, City of Cape Town, and national government playing a role, everyone playing a role, and we are wanting to be real in that regard. But let me bring it back to the Western Cape. The province was due to receive, Deputy Speaker, 1,939 new recruits during the current financial year. Now only 1,118 will arrive. This is 821 fewer officers. We haven't been told why we're not receiving the full allocation, and it is a fact. Just last week during our visit to the SAPS forensic lab, a very senior police officer had to remind a deputy minister in the presidency about them being under-resourced and the need for urgent intervention. That we are getting 800 fewer officers is very significant, Deputy Speaker, as already this province is grossly under-resourced and we are sitting with a 10% vacancy rate. A 10% vacancy rate. Since I arrived here, I wanted to make sure that in the department, we address any particular concerns with vacancy rates so that we can up it. We have a very, very low vacancy rate in terms of the department. Maybe one day, if I'm able to echo those sentiments, that we have a very low vacancy rate when it comes to SAPs, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because when we are not going to spread hope, but that is built on a solid foundation that is real, then where will we be? But adequate resourcing, let me first, we're constantly hearing that this province is in fact the most resourced. We hear it often that we are the most resourced, as amongst others there's an anti-gang unit, which other provinces do not have. The variety as Deputy Speaker. These are not new members that came into the service or the unit. These are members taken from other sectors and stations, but they have not been replaced at those sectors and stations. Let's take it a step further. During the current financial year, 363 vehicles have been ordered for the Western Cape. 363 vehicles have been ordered for the Western Cape. To date, 54 have been delivered. That's a delivery rate of 14.8%. In 4 months, I am bugging and I'm doing everything in my power to ensure that we hold SAPS accountable in this regard, that over the next 5 months, leading to the end of this financial year, that we won't have a 14.8% delivery rate with regard to vehicles that were actually ordered and that should actually be on our roads, creating visibility that ultimately leads to crime being reduced. Adequate resourcing and capacitation are clearly not prioritized, which means that the national government is not concerned whether SAPS is empowered to do their jobs. I think when we consider a man and a woman that wakes up in the morning not knowing if they will return home, they are committed. And if they are feeling that the national government, which they are under currently, are not supporting them. But this Western Cape government, Deputy Speaker, is the opposite of what is transpiring in the country and in other provinces. We care for our people because they matter for us. Whenever we are accused of being biased, please accuse me of being biased because I'm biased towards people, and we will remain biased towards people, and we want our people of the Western Cape to be the best that they possibly can be. This is part of the reason why we have our Law Enforcement Advancement Plan officers, which stems from the Western Cape Safety Plan, because the national government is failing to support SAPS and failing to protect our residents. We as the Western Cape government had to step in, because when a sphere of government fails to step in, we have had to step up, and we have stepped up. We have stepped up to such a point that we are seeing those successes, because a function and responsibility of the national government, which they have not been fulfilling, that had to be addressed, hence we stood up. The irony is that SAPS members will tell you how grateful they are for these extra boots on the ground, the extra resources that are now working side by side with them. I was now in Menenberg, I was in Khayelitsha, in Gugulethu, in Philippi East. Those are the priority areas that we have identified.
Talk to me, Minister. Talk to me.
And they are there. Die 13 gemeenskappe
Order, members.
where the LEAP officers
Honourable Van
I
Vogel.
wrote a note here that as soon as I get to the last 2 pages, the silence will start to evaporate. So it has been preempted, like we've had to preempt, Deputy Speaker. We've had to use data, we've had to use an evidence-based approach in order to make sure that we see the successes. We've always had to preempt. This government has always been at the forefront, the only government that has a provincial police ombudsman, the only government that would have court watching briefs, the only government in our entire country that have stepped up. And we will continue to preempt. So as the silence quiet down, it will pick up again. I can guarantee you that. So where these 1,257 LEAP officers are deployed will tell you that they are making a real difference in the areas. The mere presence brings about a feeling of safety. We are putting our citizens first because we care about our people. I almost want to shout Amandla. Because I'm thinking Amandla means power. And if I shout Amandla, I will word that to the people. Because even if we are talking about devolution, we are ultimately saying, let us give power to the people. Let us give power to the people. And when policing is closer to the people, we will see the results. But I will not go there. So let me first say, this is a 400 million rand investment in the current financial year that is being optimally utilized in spaces and places where it is most needed and which is backed by data and evidence. So that deployment occurs in a strategic yet deliberate manner. Between 7 and 20 November 2022, these officers effected 412 arrests for various offences, with 35 of these relating to firearms. I can further state that since LEAP's inception up to 20 November 2022, 274 firearms have been confiscated. Deputy Speaker, documents and research has showed that for every one potential firearm that is on our streets, an illegal firearm could contribute towards 14 to 25 murders. Here we have taken off 274 firearms off our streets. I indicated I was in Manenberg. Just last night, 2 firearms was removed in Manenberg as well. So the reality is that the national government is mismanaging everything in our country, and this places a squeeze on the fiscal environment.
Order, members.
I do feel that this particular line, I will repeat,
Order,
Deputy
members.
Speaker.
Just 1 minute, Honourable
This line,
Minister, just 1 second. To our 3 honourable members here, Honourable Makamba Bochia, Honourable Bakufos, Honourable Konlu, can we allow the Minister to finish? Thank you.
I
You may
will
proceed.
wrap up. I will wrap up, Deputy Speaker. Our budget has been adjusted downward by 0.03 or 304,000, which means it's a decrease from the 776 million to 775 million. It must, however, be noted that the department's budget increased with 29.2% from 2018-2019 financial year, when the allocation was 335 million rand. There has been a significant injection in the safety space, and this is what you do when you are serious about keeping citizens safe. So thank you to the Premier that since his arrival as the Premier of the Western Cape, we have seen a budget increase in our department from 335 million to 775 million rand. And this is what you do, like I've said, when you are serious about keeping our citizens safe. It's also important to mention that the 304,000 is being transferred to the Department of the Premier for the development of a software system for safety projects. We are enhancing the safety spaces with the incorporation of further technology. The SAP's budget Deputy Speaker, have consistently decreased, and during the 2020 midterm budget policy statement, I was listening to it online, and it was probably one of the bleakest days in my life. Because on that particular day, 2020, there was a mass shooting in the Khayelitsha area, and I listened to the midterm budget policy statement when 11.7 billion rand was taken from police, from education, from social development at a national level, and it was given to a failing state-owned enterprise in SAA. So that was one of the bleakest days, and to confirm that the SAP's budget has been decreasing.
Order, members. I cannot hear the Minister.
Deputy Speaker, in my notes, I have preempted once again that once I get to the last paragraph, this will happen. So for the financial year, our Neighbourhood Watch program has an allocation of 600.15 million, which will ensure that we are well resourced and capacitated, and they are a critical cog in the local crime fighting scene. Since my appointment, I'm delighted that I've been able to have so many engagements across our province, from the city of Cape Town to the West Coast to other districts, working with these neighbourhood watches, patrolling with them and with CPFs, and I have consistently sent that particular invitation to members of the opposition that you are more than welcome to join me on that particular patrols in order to get a first-hand indication of what we are doing. The CPF's budget is also something that I am pretty sure is contributing effectively to the CPFs, which is 660,000 rand for safety projects and training. The reaction unit is allocated at 6.9 million, and just last week we had the official launch of the unit at the Mauriceburg Weybridge. Ensuring that our K9 units are well resourced, there's an allocation of 8.8 million, while our district funding for safety projects, as we don't treat our rural areas as stepchildren, is 6 million. Deputy Speaker, as I conclude, it was quite upsetting a couple of months ago to identify that the SAP's hondeeenheid, the SAP's dog unit, since 2018 was reduced by 27%. We've had to step in, we've had to step up by allocating money for our K9 units in order to do a job that is ultimately the lead agency's main priority, which is the SAPs. We have had to step up. We consistently step up because we know that we need to do everything in our power to help and assist. But this is commonly known as we are putting money where our mouth is, which is not under a mattress or a couch and is also not in a foreign currency. Because I think...
Order, members.
This is actually very... Deputy Speaker, I know this is the end of the day and that I apparently have now unlimited time.
Honourable members. Honourable Minister, just take your seat for a second. Take your seat.
I want to say...
Honourable Minister, just take your seat for a second.
Money...
Honourable Minister, take your seat for a second. Honourable members, we're just prolonging a very long day. If we can just allow the Minister to complete his speech, please. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I do want to say, Deputy
Honourable
Speaker, that
I am not part of that conversation. Thank you. Over to you.
I do want to say, Deputy Speaker, that I do sense and I do feel for members of this House. I know it is extremely difficult to defend the indefensible. I know it is extremely difficult to speak and to echo a sentiment to speak and to echo a sentiment of something that you don't believe in.
Order, members. Order, members.
And I do know that is extremely difficult. So I do have sympathy for that, because we have fostered in this House valuable relationships, and I do know that to reject this budget adjustment would be to reject the people of the Western Cape. It would be to reject their safety. It would be to reject those from Menenberg, those from Kayamandi, those from Swellendam, those from Paul, those from Nyanga, and those from George, and those from Athlone and from Strand. It would be to reject all those where members of this House that is present that is serving as. So as I conclude, I'd like to clearly state that the people of the Western Cape, and particularly their safety, matter to us. We will continue being resolute in achieving greater safety across the province while working our socks off to reduce the murder rate by 50% by 2029. We have to, Deputy Speaker, as the national government has been woefully unreliable. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. Acting Chief Whip, do you want to stand on a point of order?
Thank you, Chair. I was standing up earlier, even though the Minister was still busy with his speech in terms of Rule 42, in terms of maintenance of order. It's very difficult for me to be able to hear what the Minister is saying with all the noise in the House. And perhaps if you could repeat some of the last paragraphs, so I can just make sure exactly what is occurring in this particular budget that we'll be voting on today in this House. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, it seems that every time Minister Allen stands up, there's a need to just shout him down. I think we need to have decorum in the House, and it's a common occurrence, it seems. I'm not so sure why, but maybe I can no, Minister Allen, we are not starting that. I am now going to move over to Honourable Kama.
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Kama, you're going to have to ask your colleagues to quieten down. Thank you.
No, thank you, Deputy Speaker. I would have earlier appealed to the chairperson of the Standing Committee that there is no need to audition because the handler was only here today to finish what he had started with the Speaker. But I see the handler is back, so I will leave it up to him.
Honourable Kama, before you start, I just want to caution you. Remember, we can't cast aspersions, so don't mention any names. At the moment, it's on a fine line. Okay, we always have decorum in the House for all our colleagues. 1 minute, Honourable Kama. Honourable Osman, what's your point of order?
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Order, members.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I'd like to know if the Shadow MEC for Cultural Affairs and Sports is prepared to take a question.
No?
I don't have time to waste.
Okay, you may begin, Honourable Kama. Your time is now ticking.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I just had to make that point because it looks like our responsibilities in terms of safety, they are getting more and more by day. And now we have to protect black members from the TA who are continuously victimized by the handler. Deputy Speaker.
Order, members. You see, Honourable Kama, what happens when you make statements, it becomes a furore. So your time is ticking. Can I please ask you to continue with your speech?
Let me also say, Deputy Speaker, it is true that we supported Member Allen when he was still the chair to become an MEC. Yes. We supported him because as a chair then, he used to share the same frustrations that we have around the issue of making sure that communities play part of fighting crime. We supported him because he also, like us, was frustrated by the continuous politicking by this government when it comes to crime. But Deputy Speaker, today marks exactly 9 years since the day we were informed about the passing of our great Nelson Mandela, who throughout his life fought for peace in our land.
Order, members.
He fought for peace in our land. Deputy Speaker, in the legacy of Comrade Nelson Mandela,
I can't hear the Honourable Kama.
We stand here today to reject this budget. The Premier changed the name of this department to Police Oversight and Community Safety. We thought there would be more funding allocation for the police oversight function, but instead there are budget cuts for the Office of the Police Ombudsman. This was just a desperate measure
and posturing from the Premier. They wanted to escape scrutiny on the part of this government. The notion of community safety, and we want this government to understand that the notion of community safety does not start and end with policing. It has everything to do with creating an environment where people will feel safe, whether they are in their houses, whether they are in the streets, or whether it's black members in the DA, but they must feel safe, and that is community safety. This government prides itself...
Order, members. Order.
This government prides itself on being evidence-driven on its decision and key interventions. Yet, during a period in which the 17 community reported serious crimes increased by 19.9% to 76,873 cases, the DA-led government responded by cutting the budget. This level of recklessness by the department is highly deplorable. What is the justification for decreasing the budget of this department when the murder rate has increased by 3.9%, when sexual offenses and rape increased by 23.6% and 22.2% respectively, and when car hijacking increased by 38.6%? This is a clear indication that this government does not care and that crime will always remain a political ballgame. Also, as shown by the intensification of calls on the national government to devolve police powers, as well as the investigation
Order,
by
members.
the
I
police
cannot
ombudsman
hear the
against
honourable
SAPS.
member speak. Honourable Karma, just take your seat. Please stop the time, Mr. Bockenbull. Honourable members, it's very difficult, both with Minister Allen and Honourable Karma, because they're quite far away. So if I can just ask for your indulgence, you may proceed. Start the time, Mr. Bockenbull.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Mr. Bockenbull.
This politicking also includes the divisions between neighborhood watches and community policing forums, which involves the preferential treatment of neighborhood watches and the underfunding and weakening of CPFs. Deputy Speaker, the CPFs were given, when given the necessary support and sufficient resources, can do wonders. It was through the dedicated effort of these CPFs, as well as operations by SAPS, that resulted in a drastic reduction of murders from 89 in Q2 of 2018 to 40 between July and September 2019. This was before the idea of the safety plan was even conceived. In the second quarter of 2022, Nyanga recorded the highest increase in the country in terms of murders. This increase coincides with the period in which the DA-led government deliberately destabilized, underfunded, and weakened CPFs in the province. Through the proposed adjusted budget estimates, the allocation of community police relations is cut by 5.1 million rands. This clearly shows that this government does not see value in community participation in the fight against crime. The increase in the murder rate in Nyanga and the province should be placed squarely on the DA doorstep. When crime is reduced, the DA claims all the victories and praises the safety plan. But when it increases, then it SAPS and national government that must be blamed. The DA hypocrisy knows no bounds. Through these adjusted budget estimates, the allocation for safety partnership is increased by 7.3 million to over 474 million. The amount includes the transfer to the City of Cape Town for the LEAP officers. Once more, I wish to reiterate the ANC demands for increased oversight over the City of Cape Town. We continue to throw funds to the city and they do not account to the committee for it. We continue to fund the so-called safety plan, and yet none of us have actually seen the plan. Yes, we are presented with the concept document. We were presented with the concept document, but there is no plan. There is no safety plan. We want the Premier to present us with a plan, and we want JP Smith and the senior management in his department to prepare an annual report for the LEAP program and appear before the committee to account for the funds that we give them. Deputy Speaker, we reiterate our calls for increased funding for rural safety.
Honourable members.
This department transfers 418 million in transfers to provinces and municipalities. A large percentage goes to the city of Cape Town, while rural municipalities are not prioritized. While we do acknowledge that strides are being made at establishing rural safety plans in municipalities, we are, however, not satisfied with the amounts given to rural regions for this purpose. This provincial government must stop thinking that rural safety is about farms and small holdings. It is far bigger than that. We have always maintained that the safety plan will not yield any positive result for as long as it continues to ignore the need to address the causative factors. Earlier, we were hearing here the MEC of Health complaining. And
your time is up.
Huh?
I promise you your time is up. And you know what, Mr. Porkenpool even forgot for a little time to even put the clock back, so you got extra time. Thank you very much, Honourable
Thank
Kalma.
you very much, Deputy Speaker.
It gave you extra time. Thank you. I now recognise Honourable Makamba Botia. Are you online?
Yes, Deputy Speaker.
Okay. Can I have order, please?
Deputy Speaker, I'm not sure if I should proceed.
You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. What kind of government celebrates achievements and success against crime, but then stats shows that the situation has worsened? This department, Deputy Speaker, has pronounced winning a war against crime, whilst the top 17 community reported crimes are all in the same province. The DA-led government, Deputy Speaker, likes to brag about leading other provinces when it comes to service delivery and clean audits. This obsession about leading has now gotten into their heads to an extent that they now celebrate being a leading province when it comes to contact crime and sexual offences, which is a shame. Deputy Speaker, millions of taxpayers' money is being wasted in an adventurous exercise called the safety plan, which no one even dares to explain what it stands for. What is it seeks to achieve? Deputy Speaker, small businesses in townships which are just operating so that households can make ends meet are often exposed to marauding gangs who constantly demand protection fees. Deputy Speaker, children in townships are being kidnapped in each and every day. Women in townships such as Mitchells Plain, Deputy Speaker, and Manenberg experience the high risk of being sexually violated than in any other place in this province. Deputy Speaker, everyone is just not safe in this province, but then there is a decrease of more than 300,000 in the budget of Provincial Department of Community Safety. On that note, Deputy Speaker, the EFF will not support this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP supports this budget vote. And I want to say that, you know, with the Western Cape SAPS being so under-resourced, we as the ACDP want to state it on record again that we are calling for the devolution of powers of the police to the province. A major reason for this is
Order, members.
That the shocking report by a Western Cape High Court judge that there is evidence that gang members infiltrated top management of SAPS. And now today we heard, after the investigation from the Western Cape Ombudsman, that there is substance to these allegations. Deputy Speaker, it's clear that crime will be a problem if gangsters are controlling the police. There's no proper control when it comes to SAPS, and we will only resolve that problem when powers are devolved to the provinces that will do a better job to make sure that our people are safe. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I now recognise Honourable Brinkhays.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. The DA province calls to devolve the police powers will not solve the high crime rate in the province. That call to devolve police powers remain sinister. The Community Safety Department lacks the will to effectively deal with crime. The province knows the crime hotspots. The province knows the crime hotspots. It knows that the thousands of Sabines on the Cape Flats are springboards for criminal activities, rape and murder. The province and the city of Cape Town jointly launched the tourist safety units to protect a particular important sector. So too can it deploy more metro officers in hotspots areas, in townships and on the Cape Flats. The Al-Jamaah does not support this budget. I thank you, Deputy
Thank
Speaker.
you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise the Honourable Bosman.
Good afternoon, Honourable Deputy Speaker, members of the House, Honourable Premier. I know the Premier is here today as both the leader of the executive as well as my caucus leader. But Member Kama, through you, Deputy Speaker, I know your handler, Member Syed and Member Pat Lecker has already left. And I see the incoming Chief Whip has now also abandoned you, so I do hope you are taking notes. Good afternoon as well to the people of the Western Cape, whom we are here to represent. Today, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we are here to pass a budget that will further work to expand the successes of the work done by the Department of Community Safety, a department that strives to co-create safe and cohesive communities, especially as we observe 16 days of activism, of no violence against women and children, and especially since the Commander-in-Chief of the Republic of South Africa has been silent and missing in action for the last few days as we look at 16 days of activism. Honourable Deputy Speaker, this adjustment budget sees the Department of Community Safety being allocated...
Order members. Honourable Vogel, Honourable Dagmore. Honourable members, there is a member delivering his speech. If I can ask for your indulgence. Honourable Dagmore, please. Over to you, Honourable Osman.
This department, Honourable Deputy Speaker, is getting almost 776 million to help it meet its needs of coordinating its vision of co-creating safe and cohesive communities across this province. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we know this department has a lot of work to do, and we know that it has acted with more enthusiasm and innovation than the national agency, the very agency who is responsible for the constitutional mandate of protecting and serving our communities. A national agency that has a minister in the form of a talking hat who constantly forgets that he is no longer the National Police Commissioner, but the cabinet minister assigned to exercise political oversight and provide political direction. This talking hat has not been able to adequately provide for the protection of the people of this Western Cape. The South African Police Service has confirmed to our standing committee that their Western Cape anti-gang unit has a vacancy rate of 38%. This means that out of the 232 granted positions, only 144 police officers are currently deployed to operate in this unit. And I want us to stop and think of the family of Constable Ashley Pedro, who was shot earlier last week in Parkwood by gangsters. If that unit was fully capacitated, we could have had those 232 officers respond to that incident. Even though the vacancy rate has decreased from 76% to 38% in the last financial year, it has remained a constant for the past 3 financial years, with this unit also experiencing a decrease in its operational budget. We're still waiting for more details on the crime intelligence budget. And we've had to resort to a PIA application to get that through you to Member Vogel, Deputy Speaker. It is concerning that given the recent flare-ups in murders in our province and the crime-stricken communities across Cape Town and the rest of the Western Cape, that the current capacitation of the anti-gang unit remains unchanged. For us to be able to fight crime effectively as the acting shadow MEC for police oversight, Member Kama has asked us to do, we need to fight crime efficiently and strategically, And every structure needs to have the necessary resources
Honourable
and
Member.
personnel in order to operate as
Honourable
effectively as possible.
Take your seat, please. Honourable Kama, do you have a point of order?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I would want to check if the Deputy Provincial Minister of Police is prepared to take a question.
I think you better name who that deputy. Yes,
Certainly, Deputy Speaker, I'm happy to take a question.
there you go. Over to you.
Now, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. We do know that out of the 205 now, in terms of the current stakes, out of the 202 gang-related matters, 175 are from the Western Cape. And Nyanga, Harare, Philippi, Mfuleni are part of the top 10 carjacking. Delft, Harare, and
1 minute.
Krafontein are part of the top 10 in terms of rape.
Your question.
Now the question.
1 minute. Question. Your question, Honourable Kama.
Now the question to the Deputy Minister is, aside the boots on the ground, what amount is this government spending to address the causative factors in these areas that I've counted, and what are the targeted programs to ensure that we address this in these areas?
The Honourable Member is a chair, but he may continue to answer the
Honourable
question.
Deputy Speaker.
Order, members. No. Honourable Members, Honourable Bosman, speak to me, please.
Honourable Deputy
Honourable
Speaker, I would love to lead a workshop on how to read the Blue Book, but I'm not as clever as Honourable Bartman and Mr. Wheeler. So I'm just going to respond to Member Kama by saying that he earlier reminded us that the notion of safety is something, and I want to remind Member Kama that notion is a conception of belief in something. And the people of the Western Cape does not have the belief that your national government and the police service led by your minister can protect them. So of the more than 1.5 billion that has already been spent on our comprehensive safety plan in this province, that is where you need to go look for that money, Member Kama.
Honourable Bosman. Honourable Members, order please. Honourable Bosman, please focus on me.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, as I said, it is concerning, given the recent flare-ups in murders in crime-stricken communities, that we are standing here and I'm being heckled when we talk about safety. It's concerning that during 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children, members of this House cannot listen to a speech or a debate contribution without raising points of order that are frivolous. But it's for this reason, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that the Western Cape Provincial Government introduced its own reaction unit in February this year. The unit operating within the LEAP program acts as a force multiplier to assist SAPS because we work collaboratively. This unit goes out when flare-ups in crime take place, and as the DA, we look forward to this reaction unit being expanded to further boost and keep up the efforts of keeping our communities safe. Honourable Deputy Speaker, in the recent SAPS annual report, Minister Cele quoted former President Nelson Mandela when he wrote in the foreword, if you want cooperation of humans around you, you must make them feel that they are important. And you do that by being genuine and humble. It is such a pity the minister is not able to provide political and policy direction, or even use his words to echo what former President Nelson Mandela wanted us to do. The minister is in charge of creating a police service that is caring and a police service that serves and looks to its people, but he cannot do that. A police service that acts with integrity when he addresses our hardworking men and women in blue, but this minister can't do that because he insults them and he screams at them. We want a minister that's able to take responsibility for his words, his actions, and his portfolio, but he cannot even do that. It is really time for Minister Becky Cele to resign and finally show that at least he's competent at one thing, except for playing fast and loose with the lives of victims of gender-based violence and crime. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we wish that our national minister, with the budget and political authority over policing, can use those considerable resources to properly resource police stations in a way that is innovative and create a safe workplace for the men and women in blue, as well as for victims of crime. Honourable Deputy Speaker, in some of our oversight visits since I've joined this portfolio, we've identified the concerning state of police stations and how it is affecting their general operations, particularly those in KwaNotukula, Kleinvlei, Elands Bay, and KwaNoqaba in Mossel Bay. The responsibility for maintaining police stations does not lie with this government, but it lies with SAPS and the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure nationally. SAPS also leases police stations from municipalities, and they work with DPWI to maintain these buildings, but what we saw were not buildings that were maintained. As such, due to this complex system, there are delays in certain procedures that prevent projects from coming online timeously. For example, as the members of the opposition and the members on this side witnessed at the KwaNotukula police station, lease stations, there are literal holes in the floor. The construction of a new station is only anticipated to be completed in March 2028. At the Kleinvlei police station in the metro, at the Elands police station, in Elands Bay police station, the planning and the design for new stations are only expected to start in 2024, 2026. Let's not even talk about Mossel Bay. I was shocked, Deputy Speaker, that during our standing committee meeting, the Provincial Minister, Regan Allen, revealed to us that letters to the National Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure regarding this important issue has gone unanswered. Even the National Police Commissioner, Commissioner Masemola, said he is struggling to engage with them. This not only highlights the inability of the national government to support our men and women in blue, it shows that while SAPS has a long road ahead before it meets any of its infrastructure and assets at a proper standard, SAPS is still trying very hard, but they're being failed. But, Deputy Speaker, there's hope.
Honourable Windvogel. Honourable Windvogel. Honourable Windvogel. Honourable Windvogel. Can we just have order, please? That's a running commentary. Over to you, Honourable Bosman.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape has once again shown not only to be a pillar of good governance, but also just to be doing the basics and doing it well. It remains the only province to provide a policing needs and priorities report to the national government every year, and it outlines in this PNP areas of intervention. Through that, we've seen that they've complemented SAPS resources with LEAP officers, something which the new Premier in Gauteng is rapidly adopting and rolling out. As members of the legislature, we look forward to doing more oversight on this work, and hopefully when we engage with our counterparts in Gauteng, we can see how they are copying from the Western Cape. Honourable Deputy Speaker, as always, the Western Cape, through our Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety, has come to the rescue of the people of the Western Cape. During the last financial year, the department has prioritized the following to support the provincial safety mandate. More accreditation of neighborhood watches has taken place. There's been an expansion of the K9 dog units across municipalities, continued support to LEAP officers and reaction units in municipalities. We've had rural safety summits. There's been a complete focus on occupational health and safety within the Western Cape government, as well as at police stations through the reports we have provided. There's also a firearms harms reduction strategy in place to make sure we get guns off the street. While the ANC sends guns back to gangs, we get them off the streets. Through you, Deputy Speaker, these objectives and the objectives that have been outlined shine through in the department's delivery. While crime has shown to increase in the recent crime stats, the successes of the safety plan once again has proven that the murder rate was lowered in Umfuleni, Kraaifontein, Gugulethu, Khayelitsha, and Harare compared to the same period last year. In closing, Honourable Deputy Speaker, with the festive season upon us, I would like to wish the Tourism Safety Unit and our officers on the ground working hard all the best as they are keeping our streets across the Western Cape safe. Additionally, I want to appreciate the efforts of all of our safety structures, including our CPFs and our street committees in the form of our neighborhood watches. I want to commend them for the hard work that they are doing so that we can sleep at least with one eye closed at night. It all goes without saying, Deputy Speaker, that the DA supports this adjustment budget. I want to extend a further thank you to Mr. Wasim Matthews, our procedural officer in the Standing Committee, who not only supports the committee with procedural advice and logistical support, but very often is able to get information to members at breakneck speed, because we know our members are constantly learning, even though they're not always comprehending, Honourable Deputy Speaker, through you. A very big thank you to Minister Regan Allen for your commitment to safety and for always being available to assist members of the committee and members of the public. Thank you to the HOD, Advocate Pillay, and your team sitting in the box for your continued support and for enabling the people of the Western Cape to at least feel the notion of safety in this province through your intervention. I want to thank the members of our Standing Committee for their hard work, and I want to wish them well over the festive season, because I know when they walk past a leap officer, when they walk past a reaction unit officer, when they walk past a chrysalis graduate, they will say thank you, because we know that they will feel safe in this Western Cape. As I said earlier, Deputy Speaker, we know the members on the opposite sides, their handlers, Fanagafani and Honourable Lekker, were not here earlier, but I know Honourable Syed is back. And we hope that the concept...
Honourable Bosman, please take your seat. Honourable Syed.
Deputy Speaker, I think between Member Bosman and Member Bartman, there's a confusion as to the former players of the South African cricket team.
No.
Which one is Fanagafani?
Honourable members, Honourable Syed, that is not...
And the last I saw Fanagafani was a fast bowler, not a spinner,
Syed,
like
that's
the
not a
MEC
point of
spins
order.
the stories. Thank you.
Thank you. That's not a point of order. Please, honourable members.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I'm always amazed by the responses I'm able to elicit. And I thought that after the Lamb Shanks members would be fast asleep by now. But...
Order, members. I understand it's...
Honourable Deputy Speaker, through you, we know the Lamb Shank redemption is a slow process. But I want to say to the members that this province leads in getting clean audits. It leads in good governance. It does not compete with provinces who cannot even make it to the start line. This province focuses on delivering to the people of the Western Cape. And once again, I want to thank the members. I want to thank the members of the Standing Committee for knowing that sometimes we are not friends, because we are here to defend the people of the Western Cape. And for as long as the ANC national government fails the people of the Western Cape, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we will continue to robustly engage, even with our friends. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable members. Honourable members, can I continue with the vote, please? I just can't understand why community safety creates such a furore. Honourable Minister, over to you. I'm going to try and control the last part of this vote before we actually vote on our vote. So please, can I have your indulgence? Over to you, Honourable Minister. Please, honourable members, it's the last part of the sitting. Thank you.
Deputy Speaker, I will not be long. We do know that time is running out and that we need to do everything in our power to work together. When the Premier approached me a little over 7 months ago, he said Regan safety is now, after Member Dagmo advocated, and Member Brugge's advocated, the last 7.5 months, I want to say to members of this House, through you, Deputy Speaker, it has not been easy.
No.
It has been very difficult in our province, but we have seen the strides being made. Member Kama, I know you, through you, Deputy Speaker, to Member Kama, I know Member Kama's time ran out. I would make it my mission to get the last 4 pages of his speech, because I would want to interrogate that. I remain open to engaging. I would read each and every single word. I will read each and every single word that is echoed, because we are wanting to foster the working relationships. I want to
Order,
say to each and every member.
Honourable Member Barkerfors. Honourable members, please, I cannot hear the Minister.
He is still an alternate on the committee, and I do want to say thank you for his input. He indicated that I was frustrated as the chairperson. I wish to place again on record, I'm still frustrated. Everyone on this side of the road of the aisle remains frustrated about safety and what we need to do and how national government needs to step up. We will remain frustrated in that regard. We will continue to expand our oversight role. Whenever funding has been allocated in the Ombudsman's office, Deputy Speaker, it's with regard to posts that was not filled as anticipated, and then we had to act in order to make sure that we are actually spending finances. So the additional funding that has been taken from the Ombudsman's office has been allocated towards EPWP stipends. I have indicated that I'm going to obtain Member Kama's speech, but I will also make the safety plan available to Member Kama again. So that he is able to interrogate the safety plan.
Order, members, I cannot hear the Minister.
So he is able to interrogate the safety plan because it is a whole of government approach. Each and every department playing a role. I also want to thank Member Christians for his firm view on devolution. I think everyone in our province that is working in the safety space is deeply frustrated that choices are made regarding SAPs 1,500 kilometers away from where we are, all the way in Pretoria. We would want SAPs to be closer to the people. Member Brunkhuis, thank you so much for your input. I highly appreciate your input. I just wanted to state for the record that in terms of the safety plan, over 2 billion rand is allocated towards looking at violence prevention, looking at the socio-economic circumstances, but also stepping up in the violence prevention and in the law enforcement. Of that amount, 0.02% has gone to the tourism safety officers. 0.02. And in our engagements with the tourism sector, over 90% of them answered, over 90% of the tourism sector answered one question, Deputy Speaker.
Order, members.
What will contribute to making sure that the tourism sector can boom again? And they said safety. We even want to do so much more, Member Brunkhuis, in that particular space, because when we grow the economy, when we make sure that people are employed, we will be able to create safer spaces. So from the work that health does, social development, education, all our departments, cultural affairs and sport, together with community safety, holding that space is creating safer spaces. But we want to say 660,000 rand giving to CPFs. I was at the CPF board.
Order, members.
I was at the CPF board meeting most recently the last 2 weeks
Order,
ago.
members, this is a serious topic, please.
I was with the provincial board CPF.
Focus on me, Minister, please. Honourable Dugmore. Honourable Dugmore, 1 minute.
As light reading and as engagement, I do want to say, in my engagements.
Honourable members, we can't get through today's votes. Honourable Barkerfors, it is a consistent commentary coming from you. If I can please ask so that the Minister can finish his vote.
Deputy Speaker, through you, Deputy Speaker, may I request, if there's any member in this House that is engaging the safety structures, to please provide me with information on the sentiments on CPFs. I came from Manenberg now. The CPF was present. I've engaged the Provincial board and we are doing amazing work together with our neighborhood watchers. So if you have one particular CPF that is not happy or not showing that we are making the right strides, please share that. I'm open to that engagement, but I do want to once again say, Deputy Speaker, as I conclude, I look to those in the box, I look to the standing committee as well, but vir hulle in die box wil ek sê baie dankie. Een en elk, die rol wat julle speel, dit bedoel so baie. I would not have been able to stand here fully aware that we have a daunting task, but fully aware that we are capable and that we are making the strides and that we will work with SAPS as we hold them accountable, as we press for devolution, because it is for each and every member in this house, for each and every person in our community that we are fighting. So thank you so much for the support and thank you also for the help.
Honourable members.
I also want to say, Deputy Speaker, as I conclude, I could name members here over this last 7.5 months that have helped me. I want to say thank you. Your words of encouragement, your input, Premier, baie dankie. Minister Meneer, baie dankie. Almal hier. I also want to look aside, this side, and I want to say thank you. Ek wil sê dankie. It help. And I'm going to break the rules now. Ek wil sê baie dankie, my broer. Baie dankie. And I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes the debate on this vote. I'll give a minute if you would like to leave the chambers. Thank you very much to the administration. How many? 30. Thank you, honourable members. Can I have your indulgence, please? We will now proceed, and I will now ask the Secretary to read the 7th order of the day.
Consideration of votes and schedules, Western Cape Adjustment Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Order. I have to announce that there are currently 36 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. Parties now have an option of making a general declaration. Is there a point of order? Honourable Moran, what's your point of order?
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. My hand was up for some time. It's a point of clarity. I just wanted to check with you, Deputy Speaker. I have the Honourable Dalen Mitchell.
Honourable Moran, that's not a point of order. I'm on the next
MEC
order of the
or not?
day. Please mute the Honourable Minister. Remember, I'm going to proceed with the votes. So parties have an option of making a declaration now to cover all the votes, honourable members, or decide on a specific vote that you may want to make a declaration on individually. Are there any of the parties that would like to make declarations on any of the votes at this stage? A general declaration, none? Okay. Are there any objections to votes 1 to vote 14 and the schedules of the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill? Thank you. There are objections. I will proceed. Those in favour of the votes and schedules of the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill being adopted, please say yes.
Aye. Yes. Yes.
Those not in favour of the votes and schedules of the Western Cape Adjustment Appropriation Bill being adopted, please say no. Okay.
No.
I have it that the ayes have it. Votes and schedule of the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill has therefore been adopted. Thank you. I will now ask the Secretary to read the 8th order of the day.
Finalization of the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill, including clauses and short title.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I recognise the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Thank you very much to the honourable members for their inputs on this framework for hope and budget that cares and prepares. And we ask that the bill, clauses and short title be finalised. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There being no list of speakers as far as I understand. Are there any objections to the bill, clauses and short title being finalised? No objections? Agreed to. I have to announce that there are currently, if I can just confirm, Mr. Secretary, 36, again, honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. Those in favour of the bill clauses and short title being finalised, please say yes.
Yes.
Those not in favour of the bill clauses and short title being finalised, please say no. The ayes have it. The finalisation, including clauses and short title of the Western Cape Adjustment Appropriation Bill, Bill B3 of 2022, is therefore approved. The names of the individual members present and their support or otherwise for the question before the House will be recorded in the minutes of proceedings to ensure a full record of the voting on the bill. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. The bill will be sent to the Premier for assent. I would now like to move over to the parties addressing the House at the end of this session. As a tradition, honourable members, I will now afford representatives of parties an opportunity to address the House on the occasion of the end of the year and the end of the session. I recognise the ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable colleagues, Charles Dickens opens the novel A Tale of Two Cities with a sentence that has become famous. And I quote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us and we had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven, we were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or for evil in the superlative degree of comparison only. 2022 may be described as one such year. Tale of Two Cities is a novel. We live in the real world. This is not a year that any of us, I believe, will easily forget. Having lost lives during COVID and after, people having lost jobs, and with GBV crime, gangsterism, extortion continuing to be a blot on our society and serious pathologies. We need now to rise to the occasion. Our job, Deputy Speaker, is to provide leadership, hope and transformation in the lives of our people. Nelson Mandela said, and I quote, "To be a great leader, one must never give up. Try to bring people together and be selfless. Leadership is about working with and for others to achieve a common goal that benefits everyone." The ANC wants to thank everyone in the House, irrespective of political affiliation, for the collegial and actually the cordial manner, mostly, in which we conducted our business as a collective. As colleagues serving on committees holding the executive account, we really got to know each other better on our oversight visits and learned the one truth that I think all of us hold dear, that each one of us loves our province and country dearly and wishes to improve the situation facing our people. We laugh sometimes at the Honourable former Premier Marais' jokes, appreciate his wisdom. Sometimes we mock each other across the floor, and we sometimes, Deputy Speaker, only sometimes have loud shouting matches. But we do all of this in serving the people of the Western Cape and South Africa. When we differ robustly from vantage points of our political homes, we do so to ensure that the citizens are served. We thank the members of the executive who have been available to the committees and to answer our questions. We remember with deep, deep sadness the passing of Chief Whip Lorraine Botha, and may her soul rest in eternal peace. We thank our colleagues in the ruling party in this province, our fellow opposition parties, especially EFF Good, Al Jamaa, who keep us on our toes, and appreciate the commitment of the ACDP and the Freedom Front Plus to taking up especially community issues. It would be wrong of me not to say thank you to the Honourable former Speaker, Honourable Masizole Marcelo. Who knows, members of this House, we may see him back soon. That is now a matter for the courts to decide should that avenue be pursued. Thank you to the Secretary of the Legislature who's here and all the staff for their hard work. We cannot afford a situation where ongoing battles amongst members of this House place staff members in an invidious position. Despite the difficult year, the staff of this legislature have simply been incredible. We thank the staff of our respective political parties, South African Police, for your service to the province here in this building. A particular thanks to my comrades in the ANC caucus for their hard work in serving their constituencies and holding the executive to account. While spending time with our families to reflect, I'm asking that we reflect on our role, the actual honour and the privilege that we have been given, and come back determined to serve the people of our province better. It is at times like this in our country that we should appreciate the immense value of our Constitution and the need for us to defend it and to also implement its redress positions. In conclusion, a quote from one of those who helped liberate our country, Chris Hani. And he said, "Socialism is not about big concepts and heavy theory. Socialism is about decent shelter for those who are homeless. It is about water for those who have no safe drinking water. It is about health care. It is about a life of dignity for the old. It is about overcoming the huge divide between urban and rural areas. It is about a decent education for all of our people. Socialism is about rolling back the tyranny of the market. As long as the economy is dominated by an unelected privileged few, the case for socialism will exist." Now, Deputy Speaker, whether we define ourselves as socialists, social democrats, liberals, whatever the definition are that we might describe ourselves ideologically, the challenge posed by Chris Hani remains to achieve a better life for all, a life without oppression and exploitation, and a life where the basic needs are met, where wealth is shared, and where the land belongs to those who work it. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Dugmore. I purposefully didn't put a time constraint on that because I felt that you deserved to have an end of your words. I now recognise the EFF. Honourable Member Makama-Botja.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The EFF wishes to send our best wishes to the members of Parliament and staff over the festive season. We must all be safe, and we must come back to this Parliament and restore hope to the Western Cape community, more especially those who are previously disadvantaged, and also strive to bring end to inequalities of this province. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Good.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Good would like to say that it's our first year, or my first year in this House. I came in February. I would like to say thank you to all the members that welcomed me, the good relationships that we could build and find each other in our oversight visits, both on cluster and also standing committees, the love and the caring part of the members towards me, always advising and assisting. I would also like to say thank you to the staff, and that we all have a good Christmas and a good festive season. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognise the ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the ACDP, I wish every member and the officials Godspeed over the festive season and safe travelling mercies. Deputy Speaker, the legacy that this Parliament must leave behind must be a legacy of a safer, prosperous and healthy province. With robust discussions and debates, we will achieve a better life for all of the people of the Western Cape. I want to bless members and the officials by reading from the Word of God, Numbers 6, verses 24 to 26. The Lord bless you, the Lord keep you, the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Shalom.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I know the Freedom Front Plus is not in the House. I recognise over to you, Honourable Brinkes, Al-Jamar.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, for this opportunity. First of all, I want to say that all praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and salawat and salutations on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we will never be able to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he has carried us through the year with all our work that we have done here in the Western Cape government. And I also would like to take the opportunity to thank the Premier and to thank all my colleagues and members of Parliament, and especially the Deputy Speaker and the Speaker that is not currently with us. And I would like to end off with a prayer for myself and for everybody. Allahumma anta as-salam wa minka as-salam wa ilayka ya'udu as-salam fahiyyina rabbana bis-salam wa adkhilna al-jannata dar as-salam tabarakta rabbana wa ta'alayta ya dhal jalali wal ikram سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. It is known as the season of goodwill in most Western countries, but the December festive season is, of course, not a universal one. Here in South Africa, Christmas is a public holiday and most South Africans celebrate the day for very many different reasons, ranging from religion to culture to custom to tradition, or to simply just have holiday fun, or even only because of our children, many too young still to consider ideology, to want gifts and treats like all the other children they see around them. Traditioneel is die Desember vakansie die groot Suid-Afrikaanse wegbreek. Som van ons gaan see toe, Bosveld toe of huis toe na waar ons groot geword het. Ons onthou die dinge wat ons in ons gelukkigste tye met vriende en familie saamgebind het. En ons raak aan ons beste herinneringe gedurende hierdie dae. Perhaps we should focus on the fact that all may wish for happiness and joy and goodwill to all. As die feesseisoene impak kan maak op ons begrip vir geregtigheid en gelyke geleenthede, dan kan ons maar feesvier, ongeag die rede vir die viering. So, colleagues on both sides of the House and logged online, let us be happy and let us relax. We all have worked hard this year. I believe we all deserve a break. But let us not forget, indeed, let us not forget that the people we were elected and appointed to serve do not all have the same privileges and opportunities, and certainly not the means we have to make and to relive happy memories. Let us reflect during our celebrations and our fun that we need to redouble our efforts to make possible an equal opportunity for jobs, for houses, for food, for electricity, for water, for health, for education, for recreation. The basic services, sadly, people in our province are taking for granted, but so many in the other 8 provinces are yearning for as we speak. Let 2023 be a notable year of good governance to the benefit of all. That the spirit of goodwill guide us not only during Christmas, but always as we discharge our duties, as we do the all-important work to make better lives possible and real for our citizens in the Western Cape. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes the business for the day. I wish you all a very safe and festive season. The Secretary will now end the meeting and the members will be exited. The House is adjourned.
Thank you very much.